Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhalava Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Bhalava Giridharadhari Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Kunja Bihari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatasya Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotarashata Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Garantarash Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shivaranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 38, Akura's Arrival to Vrindavan, text number 9. Drakshami nunam sukapolanashikam Smitabalo karuna kanjalochanam. Smitabala karuna. Yeah, that's it. Smitabalo karuna kanjalochanam. Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam. Pradakshinam me pacharanti vaimiga. Drakshami nunam sukapolanashikam. Drakshami nunam smitabalo karuna kanjalochanam. Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam. Pradakshinam me pracharanti vaimigra. Drakshami nunam sukapolanashikam. Smitabalo karuna kanjalokanam. Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam. Pradakshinam me pracharanti vaimriga. Please chant. Drakshami nunam sukapolanashikam. Smitabalo karuna kanjalochanam. Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam. Pradakshinam me pracharanti vaimriga. Drakshami nunam sukapolanashikam. Smita balokaruna kanchalochanam Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam Pradakshina me pracharanti vaimriga Drakshami nunan sukapola nashikam Smita balokaruna kanjalochanam Mukam mukundasya gudalakavritam Pradakshina me pracharanti vaimriga Drakshami I'm going to see Nunam for certain Su beautiful Kapola whose cheeks Nasikam and nose Smita smiling Avaloka with glances Aruna reddish Kanja lotus-like Lochanam the eyes Mukham the face Mukundasya of Lord Krishna Guda twisting Alaka with hair Avritam frame Pradakshinam clockwise circumambulation Me of me Pracharanti are performing by indeed Mrigaha the deer. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Surely I shall see the face of Lord Mukunda, since the deer are now walking past me on the right. That face, framed by his curly hair, is beautified by his attractive cheeks and nose, his smiling glances, his reddish lotus eyes. Purport. Akura saw an auspicious omen, the passing of the deer on his right, and thus he felt sure he will see the Supreme Lord Krishna. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Niti Namini Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So yesterday we heard Akura's meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord, and after performing that worship of the lotus feet of the Lord, it's called Pada Sevana, he is now wanted very eagerly to see the Lord face to face. We also heard through the classes the mood of worship that Sri Akura has towards Lord Krishna. Just like deity worship, we heard one class, Krishna Archana was pointed out. Is a meditation in the similar mood of deity worship. We recommended that we first approach, when we take darshan, we worship the Lord, we first approach his lotus feet. And we gradually raise our awareness and conscious and attention towards his beautiful lotus face. And fill our heart with his beautiful glances, his beautiful smile, and beautiful hair. So these are images that are over and over being depicted in the beautiful prayers that are composed by, in so many ways, by Krishna's devotees. We hear in the Damodarastaka that the Lord's cheeks are like bimba fruits. They're reddish by the kisses of Mother Yasoda, and his face is framed by beautiful locks of curly hairs. And his lips are beautiful, of reddish color. And his glances with his smiling face is actually completely mesmerizes the devotees. So Akura is meditating in this way, in this verse is his eagerness, and his meditation goes towards the beautiful face of the Lord, and he's thinking in this way. He wanted very much eagerly to see the Lord face to face. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this verse. Akura confirmed that his desire will be fulfilled because of seeing auspicious omens, such as the deer circumambulating him. Therefore, quote, "It is certain that I will see his face surrounded by curly locks, his lotus eyes, his glances, his beautiful cheeks and nose, and his smiling face." So, in Akura's absorption, which is, it is explained that it is the perfection of samadhi. When one is fully absorbed, one's mind and consciousness is fully absorbed in the Supreme Lord. So Akura is experiencing all the symptoms of samadhi, and in this absorption, he sees, or he's confirming from all over, from different signs that yes, indeed, he will receive the darshan of the Lord. So he observed the deers were going around him clockwise, like circumambulating him. And you can, I can only imagine that, it's when one is approaching something very wonderful that you're actually looking forward to see very much. Prabhupada says that the mood of Akura, that when we enter Vrindavan, we should meditate in the same mood of Akura, with that eagerness. And in general, devotees experience that when going in pilgrimage to Vrindavan. Is a great expectation to see the beautiful form of Shri Radha Shama Sundar and Shri Krishna Balaram. So if you arrive in the train station and you take in Mathura, and you take the rickshaw to Vrindavan, to Krishna Balaram Mandir, through that path that leads you in this main road, and then one is having this great expectation of taking darshan of the beautiful deities in the beautiful temple. So Prabhupada recommends like that we just like Akura is fully absorbed in seeing the form of the Lord. Similarly, we should also imbibe that mood. Srila Jiva Goswami comments on this verse. Having meditated on his lotus feet with natural dasya ras, he then desires to see Krishna's lotus face because of greed from intense prema. Nunam means certainly. He is called Mukunda because of his teeth, white like jasmine buds, Kunda, when he slightly smiles. Do you know that meaning of the name Mukunda? Usually we hear the meaning of the name Mukunda as who awards liberation, right? But this is a beautiful meaning of the name Mukunda. Kunda means jasmine buds. And when he smiles, his teeth are as beautiful, as white as jasmine buds. So he's called Mukunda. So in this case, Sri Akura, he prays to Lord Mukunda, meditating in this way in his beautiful smiling, his beautiful smile. The name shows the special beauty of his face. The reason he is certain that he will see is his face is because of the deer walking from the left to right in front of him. Vai means it is clear. Another version has adaha, there. Because of the sound of the chariot, the deer were far away. Because there were not a couple, but many, mrigaha, it may be concluded that black antelope were also there. Srila Jiva Goswami is very detailed. In the scriptures concerning omens, it is said that if two gavajas go from left to right in a pleasing manner, if golden deers, not just two, go from left to right, if they are all beautiful and do not move from the left to the left, and if they mix with black antelope, then there can be no evil. So Akura is meditating in this way because, of course, he was carrying the orders. He was in a mission from the evil Kamsa. And the mission was evil itself, because the mission was to fetch Krishna and Balaram and bring it to Mathura in order for Kamsa to kill them. But Akura was very certain that Krishna, he had perfect understanding of Krishna, who Krishna was. So Krishna, as a super soul, will understand his heart. His heart was full of love and devotion towards Krishna. And so he was certain that Krishna will bypass the external situation in which he is involved and understand his heart. And thus he will be accepted by Krishna. So he's have full faith on this principle. on the principle of, Krishna as a Supreme Lord will accept him because he have given his heart to Krishna. He's a perfect devotee. So he sees the signs that confirms that yes, there will be no evil in this meeting with Krishna. There will be that it will be all auspicious, that Krishna will accept him. So he's becoming more and more and more absorbed, and the feelings of devotion and the feeling of love are becoming more and more intense. It's like, when you're churning milk and make it into burfi. As the time passes, it becomes thicker and thicker and thicker until it becomes burfi. So Sri Akura's prema is becoming more and more intensified as he further meditates like that. And it reaches its height when he sees we're gonna hear that he sees in the earth of Vrindavan the marks of the lotus feet of Krishna. And then when he sees that, he loses it. And then he falls into the ground, fully prostrated, and rolls into the ground in ecstasy. And just by seeing the marks of the lotus feet of Krishna, he experienced a full ecstasy of prema. And then he goes further and finds Krishna and Balaram with the cows, and all his expectations were met there. He sees Krishna face to face, Krishna smiles at him, and Krishna embraces him and accepts him. So Akura is a very special personality. He is celebrated in the same level of some of the great devotees of Lord Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is explained that there is 9 processes of devotional service, starting with hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Dasyam, Vandana, Sakyam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana. I think those are the 9. Did I say 9? Yes. So each one of those has a personality, a devotee of Krishna that exemplifies, that is the example, the highest example, or we'll say, the celebrated example of that type of process of devotional service. So we hear that Maharaj Parikshit is celebrated as someone who achieved perfection by the process of hearing. Sukhadev Goswami is celebrated by the greatest example of the process of chanting. Sometimes someone says Narada Muni also, but we hear Sukhadev Goswami. Goddess Lakshmi Devi is celebrated as the greatest example of Pada Sevanam. And Krishna's Smaranam, or the remembrance of Krishna, constant remembrance, Prahlad Maharaj is celebrated as such. And then Dasyam, Hanuman is celebrated as the greatest example of a dasya, of a servant of the Lord. And We have Arjuna, who is celebrated as the Sakyam, as a friend of Krishna. And we have Maharaja Ambarish, is celebrated as someone who gives everything, Atma Nivedana, to Krishna. And Sri Akura is celebrated as the example of Vandana. And Vandana is Vandana means prayer, like prayers. But it's also translated as prostrated prayers, meaning that you prostrate yourself at the lotus feet of the Lord and offer prayers in devotion. We will hear the prayers, the famous prayers of Sri Akura later. I think will be the next chapter, when Krishna and Balaram manifested their forms as Lord Vishnu and Shesha. So Lord Balaram became Ananta Shesha, or manifested, not became, manifested, give a darshan of his Ananta Shesha manifestation, and Lord Krishna of Lord Vishnu. And when Akura had that darshan, that was right after they left Vrindavan in the way to Mathura, after the very, very heartbreaking, dramatic departure of Krishna from Vrindavan, then Krishna orders Akura to please stop at the banks of the Jamuna, because they will take baths before leaving Vrindavan. So as they took bath, then they took bath, they came back in the chariot, and then they sit in the chariot, and Akura was going to also do the same thing after them. So one day he went into the chariot, into the river, into the Yamuna river, Akura. Then he saw Krishna and Balaram was there. But he just left Krishna and Balaram in the chariot, so he became very confused. So he thought, oh, he must have, seen, him, the sun or something. He's me hallucinating. So he went back and saw Krishna and Balaram in the chariot. So then he turns back and goes back into the river. And when he goes back into the river, he sees the form of Ananta Shesha and Lord Vishnu lying on Ananta Shesha. And then from there he sees, all this cosmic manifestation, all these energies of the Supreme Lord. So you have the full darshan. And in that reverential mood, when he goes back to the chariot, Krishna asks Akura, have you seen something wonderful in the river? And then Akura then offered these beautiful prayers, these sets of prayers that are on the par of the prayers, of the greatest prayers that we hear in the Bhagavatam, like the prayers of Lord Brahma, or the prayers of Queen Kunti, or the prayers of Narada, all these different wonderful prayers we will hear, the beautiful, fully realized, with complete understanding of Krishna's position and his position. So Akura is not an ordinary soul. Akura is a celebrated devotee of the Lord. And like many of the great celebrated devotees of the Lord, Akura also, when he talks about himself, he expresses himself with doubts of his qualification. So we hear that also as he's traveling to Vrindavan in his meditation, then he sees himself as this contaminated, or just in a way, a materially conditioned person. But we cannot get confused about the things when devotees express themselves in that way, because that is just a symptom of their transcendental humility. We see that in many ways. It's throughout the way devotees talk about themselves. Yesterday we were hearing a class by my spiritual master on the prayers that Hanuman offered to Lord Ramachandra. And beautiful prayers also, but he was narrating that the humility of Hanuman, and he was narrating from the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sanatana Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, in which Narada Muni went to see Hanuman, and the question about who's the greatest devotee? And then Nanda is approaching Hanuman, you are the greatest devotee. It is none. You're the greatest devotee of Lord Ram. Lord Ram declares this. So Srimati Sita Maharani declares it. You are the greatest. And Hanuman, no, you are quite wrong. Just see how insignificant I am and self-falling I am, that Lord Ram took everybody, all the devotees, he took back to Ayodhya in the spiritual world, and he left me behind. And he left me behind because I'm like a monkey. I'm always, I can't control being a monkey. I'm always doing foolish things. So I'm very disqualified. So no. You want to find the greatest devotee? You go to the Pandavas. They're the greatest. So then Narada inviting, you come with me. And then he said, no, I'm such a monkey. I better just stay here in Kimpurusha Varsha and just pray to Lord Ram, just sing the glories of Lord Ram, because I'm going to be, if I go there, I'm going to do some monkey business and it's going to cause some disturbance. So it's these ideas like that. So should we think that Hanuman? No. We understand those are expressions of their humility. We hear that. Imagine, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he considered himself lowest than the worm in the stool. And he feels like that. So the expressions of humility of these great personalities, we have to see it like that. There's these great personalities, a pure devotee of such caliber, an associate of the Lord, a celebrated devotee of the Lord. We always have to see with the reverence and the reverence that they command by their character and by their purity. Can we say that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because the beginning of his life, he was not, his pure devotion, his love for the personality of Godhead was sort of covered, apparently. That it was until he received a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita by a friend, and when he read that, poof, immediately his whole devotion manifested, and he became one of the greatest acharyas, the seventh Goswami. It's not necessarily that he became, he was always there. It's just the lila comes to manifest in such a way. Or Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was interested in the liberation, the non-violent movement of Mahatma Gandhi. But it was until his friend dragged him to hear and see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then Prabhupada's full character as this powerful acharya, came forward. So these things are like that. So Akura is a great personality as such, and he is related to Krishna. He is considered an uncle of Krishna, but it's because they're in the same dynasty, the Yadu dynasty, and from Yadu there's many generations up to Maharaj Vrishni. From Maharaj Vrishni, then the father of Akura was the son of Maharaj Vrishni. And few generations, Maharaj Vrishni have another son, and then from that son also came the descendants, several generations down, of Maharaj Shurasena, who was the father of Vasudev, who is the father of Krishna. So Maharaj Shurasena had Vasudeva as her son, as well as Kunti Devi, and some other more. So Akura was older than Krishna's grandfather, Surasena, but related in that line. So sometimes when there is, my father has an uncle, then that is also my uncle, right? So one sees like that as generations maintain. So Akura was considered uncle to Krishna. And although such an elder in the dynasty, he was one of the chiefs, Yadus. He was a great minister, quite highly qualified, a powerful warrior too. Although his name, it would be interesting to find how he got his name, Akura, which means not cruel. Krura means cruel, Akrura means not cruel, which the gopis took that and claimed that you're not Akrura, you are Krura. You are very cruel by taking Krishna away. So Akura, just like Kunti, just like many of the Vrishnis, they have full understanding of Krishna's position. So Akura have full understanding of Krishna's position throughout. And as a politician, as a Kshatriya, he made very calculated choices to remain as a minister to Kamsa, because Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena, and Ugrasena came, so there is in the line of King Yadu, so there's the Vrishnis and the Andakas. So when you hear that, sometimes when there's the narrations of, of Dwarka, of all these different lines of Yadus, and especially when it came to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so then the different armies of the Yadavas, they came, and one of them was the Andakas. And the Andakas, from Maharaj Andaka, then that's a line in which Surasena came, and also Devaka was the brother of Surasena, and Devaka was the father of Devaki. But we hear in the narrations of Krishna book that Devaki was placed under the protection of Surasena, and then so she was like a sister to Kamsa, which was the son of Surasena. So when Kamsa took the kingdom from Maharaj Ugrasena, then Akura made this calculation. He decided to stay as a minister of Kamsa. But with the understanding, because he was present at the time of the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki, in which the voice in the sky made this pronounce that Kamsa will be killed by the son, the eighth son of Devaki. So he came to understand Krishna's position, and he was well informed about Krishna's position. I haven't heard how he was informed, but in one sense, Vasudeva, they are all family members. So Vasudeva and Devaki, they fully know. So Kunti was able to fully know, and Akura was in full understanding of Krishna's position. So he remained like that because he knew that Krishna was going to come at one point and kill Kamsa. And he was able to see Krishna and serve Krishna in this way. So he saw throughout his meditation and his worship and his acceptance of Krishna as the personality of Godhead was there. And thus, Akura is worshipped and celebrated. When we go to Vrindavan, from the Krishna Balaram Mandir, if we go somewhat north of the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and north towards, let me see, I guess this way is east, yeah, sort of northwest a little bit, you enter into a field. There's nothing there but it's a field. You walk into a field and keep walking, and you come to this place. It's a hill, and there's a temple on the top of the hill, and in that temple there is a deity of Akura with Krishna and Balaram. It's called Akura Ghat, and is the place in which Akura have the darshan of Krishna and Balaram as Vishnu and Ananta Shesha. So it's worship, and the deity is there, Sri Akura. So it's a very special personality, and we're going to hear more about it, especially when it comes to these celebrated prayers in which he is accepted to have reached perfection, or to manifest the perfection of vandana, of this type of devotional service of prostrated prayers. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Can you please explain again about who is the father of Akura? Because I searched, I could not find who is his father and how he became the uncle of Krishna.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have it here. Okay. Akura, whose name is derived from the Sanskrit akrur, meaning who is not cruel, was one of the 12 sons born of Swapalka and Gandhini. Swapalka was the son of Vrishni, and Gandhinya was the daughter of the king of Kashi. So he comes in the line of Vrishni, and Vrishni has the son Swapalka, and from him, there's even a family tree here. Hold on. Yeah, Vrishni has Swapalka and come on. And Swapalka and Chitraratha. From Swapalka was Akura, and then from Chitraratha, few generations down, then came Shurasena and like that. So it's come from the Vrishnis. So the great-grandfather of Krishna is the same grandfather of Akura, like that. So they related, in that line coming from Vrishni.
So that is, Akura is the great-grandfather of Krishna.
No. No, Akura was the son, the great, whatever, how many grades are there, of Krishna is Vrishni. And Vrishni was the grandfather of Akura. Is that clear?
And that means Akura is not the brother of Vasudev.
No. Akura was much older than Vasudev, according to what is explained here, the family tree. Akura was much older.
Yes.
Akura was, let's say, Akura was sort of cousin of Vidurata, who was the father of Hridika, who was the father of Devamidha, who is the father of Shurasena. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 generations. So Akura was the contemporary of 4 generations up, from Shurasena. So he was very old from that. He was much older than Krishna's grandfather.
So that's what. Then how Akura addressed Nanda Maharaja's brother? That's a little confusing. That's why I was researching, but I couldn't.
He approaches, he says, brother, to Nanda Maharaj. No, the one who was half brother of Nanda Maharaj was Vasudev. Sorry, Vasudev. Half brother, yes. So Vasudev, is it Vasudev? no, Vasudev, that was her brother. Yeah. So the king Devamita had, is explained that had a Kshatriya wife and had a Vaishya wife. And the Vaishya wife have so it's with Vasudev, not with Akura. I don't think so.
The question is, when Akura went to Gokul to bring Krishna, that time Akura addressed Nanda Maharaj as brother, to my brother. And that is the...
I wonder. Hey, bro. Yeah, well, possibly, is part of the culture. You know better the culture. I mean, in Indian culture, everybody's an uncle. Any elder in the community that is sort of close or family member is your uncle, kaka or mama, like that. So who knows? Maybe it's related to. I don't know. But I know this is what I read from the family trees that are given there of the Yadu dynasty.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class. You were mentioning the 9 processes devotional service and the different, you mentioned a few of the devotees who represented those limbs of devotional service. And I always had a question about this topic because sometimes, we hear that in this, which you mentioned, any limb of devotional service is just as important or beneficial as the other one. However, I heard a few things. One thing I heard recently, I'll bring the verse next time I come. It's an important verse, but I just recently read a couple weeks ago that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that among the 9 processes of devotional service, the most important limb is smarana, remembrance. And I was kind of surprised. I may have read the purport, but that's one thing I could appreciate because we could hear and chant all we want, but that doesn't mean we remember it. We could go autopilot, familiarity breeds contempt. Also, Bhaktisiddhanta, and Prabhupada says, but there's an article by Bhaktisiddhanta, you can look it up online. It's called Chant the Transcendental Message, or He Will Be Eclipsed. This is on Bhaktivedanta Memorial Library website. And basically he says, unless one chants the glories of the Lord, then you will not understand Krishna consciousness. And so these 3 points I kind of appreciated because there's a nice quote by Buddha. He says, let no man think lightly of evil, saying in his heart, it will not come upon me. Even by the falling of water drops, a water pot is filled, the fool becomes full of evil, even if he gathered little by little through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, television. So that's all we're seeing every day. That's how our relationship is going to be with devotees. Very arrogant, very disrespectful. And one last point I will mention, that even if we're hearing a Bhagavatam every day, if we're hearing our ego talk all the time, I'm great, and other devotees aren't. I like to hear myself speak, and I don't like to hear anybody else speak. And so we learned this in the Devananda Pandit pastime. When Srivas Thakur entered the Bhagavatam class, he was known as a great celibate monk, great speaker of Bhagavatam. But when Srivas Thakur entered Bhagavatam, he actually glorified Devananda Pandit. This Bhagavatam is such nectar. So naturally, you would think somebody will appreciate, somebody who's glorifying your Bhagavatam class. But what did he do? Srivas Thakur started expressing symptoms of love of God. He started to make so much noise in love of God. His students became agitated. Devananda Pandit became agitated. So he threw him outside the Bhagavatam class. And later on, Lord Chaitanya blasted him for this. Why? Because he wasn't hearing Bhagavatam. He was hearing his ego speak. I'm great, and no other devotee is great. So therefore, I only like to hear myself speak. So we see in contrast that Devananda Pandit, he couldn't listen to Srivas Thakur for even 7 seconds because he was hearing his ego. Look at Lord Chaitanya. He was able to listen to a Mayavadi for 7 days straight without complaining, without looking at his phone, without looking at his watch. Why? Because he was actually hearing the Bhagavatam. What is that? So my question is, we can see that this causes problems between devotee relationships. There's a quote that says, 2 monologues do not make a dialogue. So what are some steps we could take, especially as managers? Because I asked this question on Sunday to the devotee. The tendency is that you could give your whole life to the temple, to devotees, but devotees may not appreciate your service. But we see Krishna, even if you give him a leaf, a water, or devotional service in your mind, he's so grateful. So especially as managers, because I think that causes a lot of friction, in the end, we shouldn't be dependent on anybody glorifying us or appreciating us, but we can see devotees become so discouraged when they're not appreciated. So what are some steps we could take, especially when we're in a managerial position, to make people feel appreciated? Thank you for coming to Bhagavatam class. There's hardly nobody else coming to this class. So thank you for any little service you could do. So how can we appreciate devotees better to make the atmosphere more harmonious?
It's a matter of maturity and also individually and collectively, but especially we start individually being introspective. And the principles are there. You mentioned something, I like that idea, that expression of, 2 monologues don't make, a conversation, or make, a substantial exchange between persons. And in general, a monologue in that type of description is exactly fit the person just listening to yourself, or I will say less awareness of the reality of someone else, but very much centered or self-absorbed in my reality. And that's a part that, in one sense, it's not unnatural, but it's something that we have to evolve, and meaning that we have to mature that stage of self-centeredness. So we're moving from being very, very self-centered into being much aware and conscious. It's conscious of other people, conscious of Krishna, conscious of everything. So it's a matter of purification, growth. Again, in short, the difficulty is when we are so self-centered, so our focus is just centered on me. And so when we move away from that and become aware, then we naturally can appreciate others because we become conscious of others. And when we talk, and when we express ourselves, when we communicate, when we share, is not with me in the center and with the expectations that have me in the center, and I should be recognized, I should be accepted, I should be, all the things that are centered on me. And when I express myself, I want me to be heard, and I want to hear myself. But, you become, which is not to be criticized, but, but naturally for myself, when I'm focused on myself, then I'm trying to evolve and open more and more my capacity to be aware of others and the reality of others. So when we treat ourselves and we connect ourselves, having that sort of consciousness that I'm conscientious about someone else in the way I act, in the way I connect, then that's a much more mature, and that will become a much better atmosphere for relationship, for a loving relationship, and for a devotee type of relationship. So, like that. It's a little past time, Krishna Archana. No. You fine? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you very much.